Hey, what's going on, everyone? How you guys doing? My name is Matt Jarbo. Welcome to 3 Buck Theater, and I'm testing out a new setup. If you know my channel at all, you know I like to experiment with things, so here we are. And today I want to discuss a bit more about last night's episode of The Mandalorian, Chapter 14, The Tragedy. And the reason why I'm really I'm really getting a little bit annoyed with the show only because it feels like it's just turning into fan service, the series, in a way where people criticized The Force Awakens for how similar it was to A New Hope, and also The Rise of Skywalker for how it tried to play fan service to a number of issues, but people seem to generally be favorable to this. Now, that being said, I am not criticizing the show from the perspective of, oh my god, it's terrible, I don't like it, and blah, blah, blah. No. Love the show. Love the show. I loved the episode, but I have my issues with it because I feel like the fan service is just getting to be a little bit too much, and the show does need the ability to stand on its own. And I'm wondering if it's falling into a second season trap that we see a lot of shows fall into. Now, I'll explain what I'm talking about. So last night on the episode, by the way, there's spoilers here. All right, it starts off with a recap of Chapter 5, or the epilogue scene of Chapter 5, the post-credit tease, where we see Fennec Shan's body in the Tatooine desert, and there is someone approaching her, and we hear the spur sound. The spurs were immediately drew attention from the entire Star Wars-loving internet, because they remembered that that same exact spur sound is what we heard as Boba Fett entered into the dining room in Empire Strikes Back. So we know that that was Boba Fett, and at the end of Chapter 9, the season premiere, we got confirmation that it was Boba Fett, played by Tamara Morrison, which, by the way, that was just excellent, amazing casting, and I love the fact that he is playing the character. It's just so cool that he's playing the character the way that he is. So in this scenario, what we have is the introduction of Boba Fett, like, specifically. And it wasn't even like a real big introduction. They kind of did this with Ahsoka last week too, where it wasn't even like a long drawn out buildup. It was like, he's like, I'm Boba Fett. And you're like, okay. And you're like, you see Ahsoka last week, and you're just like, oh, it's Ahsoka Tano. And even Mando was like, Ahsoka, Bo-Katan sent me. And she's like, oh, okay, cool beans. So it's like they aren't falling into a lot of those tropes, but they are still doing some of those tropes. They're doing their best to navigate around them, but in some ways it does feel like it is very fan servicey. Like, if you know who Ahsoka Tano is, you're going to know Bo-Katan, you're going to know their story, and you're going to know specifically what to expect from the interaction, or at least what to expect somewhat from the interaction. The same thing goes relatively with Boba Fett. Now, Boba Fett, we only really saw him in Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi very briefly, and he's been a cult icon ever since. So having him come on screen was a really cool thing, and when he got his armor in the second half of the episode and he just tore through those stormtroopers like you wouldn't even believe, my God, that was a thing of sheer brilliance. But when I'm talking about the fan service, again, like when Mando got to Tython, and Grogu is on the stone, and he looks up and he hears a ship, you're thinking like, oh, this is Moff Gideon, and here comes Slave One. It's like, what? No way! Oh my God! And you're like, okay, cool. It's going to be a lot of fun to see where this whole thing goes. So yeah, Slave One shows up. Yeah, all this stuff is going to be happening. And then he comes out with Fennec Shan. They do all that stuff. And it's like, okay, there's like, I'm a Mandalorian like my father before me, effectively was a line that was used in order to showcase that Jango was in fact a foundling. So he is a true Mandalorian. And okay, cool beans. I'm not against that. It seems to tie in to just the narrative of Mandalorians and needing to find foundlings in order to maybe propagate the race a little bit. So then you've got that, and then you've got the whole part where he takes out the two ships, and he's like, oh, I was aiming for the other guy, which again is another line that they've called back to. And there's been multiple lines throughout, the show that have called back to previous things, but this felt, I don't know, to me, this episode felt a little bit too on the nose in regards to that. It felt too on the nose in regards to that. And I think it kind of acted as a bit of a detriment. Now, that could change as we go into the final 2 episodes of the season, as we see the mission to break Grogu from the hands of Moff Gideon before Dr. Pershing can extract his blood to turn him into a donor for what can only be an Emperor's clone body, leading into the Rise of Skywalker. And so a lot can happen in the meantime, and I'm very excited to see what's going to happen, by the way. But I'm hoping they start to make it its own thing. Someone made a good comment today on Twitter, which I thought was interesting. And they said, The Mandalorian is like a guest star in his own series. And what they mean by that is like every episode is kind of turning into a bit of a cameo of the week. Chapter 1, Cobb Vanth. Chapter 9, Cobb Vanth. Chapter 11, Bo-Katan. Then you had, Chapter 12, which was the Snoke clone. And then in Dr. Pershing, kind of, right? And then the Dark Troopers. And then you had Chapter 13, The Jedi, which had Ahsoka Tano in it. And then mention of Grand Admiral Thrawn. It's like it's building this whole world around Mandalorian, but it almost feels like he is not the key player in the story, that he is just a bit part. And that could be something someone might argue is the Force at work, that the Force is working through Mando and Grogu in order to lead to a new path and to lead to the rebirth of the Jedi Order before we know what happens with Luke and, The Last Jedi, which I kind of feel at the same time that this series is going to do a little bit to make up for The Last Jedi. I think they're going to try to rectify some of the backlash, which again could be a problem, right? And that is something else which I think is worth discussing. When you think about the response to The Last Jedi, at least from J.J. Abrams and Chris Terrio, they decided to retcon a lot of that movie, very similarly to how Rian Johnson retconned a lot of what JJ did in The Force Awakens. And it was like this very non-cohesive plan, which ultimately worked against it. It worked against the concept. So now we have this plan, but now we're in the phase of building it out. And it might be too much too quick. It might be too much too quick. And that's the whole thing, going back to the line about Mando being a guest role in his own story. Because if you go and you look at the popular franchise Mad Max, the 4 films in that franchise, often it isn't even really about Mad Max. He is a person in this world. The world happens not necessarily around him, but he's involved in other scenarios, and to where he's not even really the main character. If you go look at 2015's Fury Road, the movie is more about Furiosa than it is about than it is about Max. And even the other films, Thunderdome, very similarly. There's a lot of other elements at play in that franchise that kind of showcase that Max is a character that we're following through this apocalyptic world, but he isn't necessarily the key. And that is something that I've been kind of wondering about with this show as well. I trust Filoni and I trust Favreau to be able to give us something that is going to be awesome, that is going to be memorable, that we're going to be talking about for the next year. I fully believe that. But I also know how Disney operates as a conglomerate, as a company, as a toy pusher. And this kind of stuff feels like they're getting ready to push the toys. Like, for example, yesterday I was at the mall and I went by ThinkGeek and I wanted to pick up a Mando pop because I just want to collect them. And I'm like, what do you guys have? And he's like, oh, we're sold out of Mando, but we got the Gamorrean Fighter. And I'm like, the Gamorrean Fighter? Dude, we're a month into the show coming out. And you've already got the Gamorrean Fighter. They got the child and the eggs. The egg canister from Chapter 10. They're already pushing the marketing. And I get it because the show is amazing and the marketing is great. But that's my argument here, is that Disney is pushing it because they need to make money. And I'm wondering if if Filoni and Favreau are trying to, at this point, make their way through this world by expanding it so much so quick because they realize that it's so popular. Disney wants more shows. Like, for example, Cassian Andor confirmed filming today. Obi-Wan confirmed filming next month, meaning we're going to get those shows by the end of 2021. With the current pandemic shutting down any Star Wars movie until 2023, God, even shutting down most movies for a long time. What we're going to be seeing here is a situation where you've got a number of these properties that are going to be going to Disney Plus, and Disney realizing that that's where the value of Star Wars is right now in live action series and animated series. Because even today, Hollywood Reporter came out and said that they're currently developing a animated show based on the High Republic. The High Republic is a publishing initiative that was supposed to launch in August, but now it's going to be launching in January. So, I mean, they're making 2021 all about Star Wars, man. You know, the Bad Batch show is rumored to be coming out in 2021 as well, potentially a sequel to Rebels in animation form. But I also think the sequel to Rebels is now going to be Rosario Dawson's Ahsoka Tano. We can see that there's a conglomerate here happening. We can see that there's this massive push here. And I feel like, kind of like, maybe the Arrow Season 2, where they decided to push the world expansion more in some cases than story, and it ended up hurting it a little bit. And I'm not saying don't watch it. I'm not saying whatever. I'm saying I'm a little bit concerned. However, I'm still going to watch it, still going to be supportive of it, and they'd have to do something really terrible in order for me to like lose interest. And even if I lost interest, I would still watch it because it's Star Wars. So there's that. But I'm hoping that they're not trying to rush it through again, because we saw this a year ago with Rise of Skywalker. Rise of Skywalker should have been episodes 9 and episode 10, not one movie. 2 movies. They should have done it like that, and that would have been better as a way to tell the complete arc of how JJ wanted to tell it, rather than cramming it all in. Here we get the ability to stretch it out, to kind of play with it a bit more, but you can tell with the 8-episode limited count per season that they're trying to cram as much in as humanly possible, because Disney now sees the viability in the product and they want to make sure that it's out there. Anyway, look, man, I just wanted to talk about this stuff. I've been wanting to get this off my chest all day, and I figured this is a great time with my new setup. So I want to hear your thoughts. I want to hear your opinions on this one. Do you feel that it is a big deal? Do you care? Are you excited? Look, I'm excited for the world expansion. I'm excited to see more Clone Wars characters. I'm excited to see more Rebels characters. I'm excited to see characters from the comics and to see characters from the games come in. Give me a Cal Kestis. I'll be very, very, very happy individual. I'm all for it. I just want it to be something that happens at a natural pace. This season, things have been progressing at a very fast pace, and that's a bit of a concern considering how Disney operates when it comes to Star Wars, because we know how badly they can screw things up. Anyway, your thoughts, your opinions, let me know down in the comment section. My name is, of course, Matt Jarbo. If you dig me standing and talking to you and being more active, let me know. I'll talk to you guys later. Have yourself a great day. Thanks for watching, and peace out.